Industry has always been a problem in city skylines. For most of us, it's mostly an afterthought. We zone it far away from our city to minimize pollution, and we forget it. But that's not at all how modern industrial zones work in today's age. Look around on Google Maps in any city, and you'll quickly see that industrial zones often exist amid residential areas. Not all industry has to be dirty factories belching smoke all day. In fact, most of that type of industry has long since moved out of North America, and the majority of modern industry in today's age consists of warehouses, which barely exist in the game until now. Recently, an asset creator by the name of Reworking, I'm terribly sorry if I'm butchering your name, I'm sure I am, but this asset creator has recently uploaded the generic ploppable industrial set, which includes 11 buildings, on Paradox Mod. And let me tell you, this is one of my favorite asset packs that has been released recently. And we're going to be building a realistic industrial zone in today's episode using these assets. So if you're hyped, leave a like on this video and let's get into it. So this episode will take place within Camden, and I'm pretty well going to be completing this entire borough this episode. And the first thing I would like to do is populate some of this green space with some of the new fancy industrial assets that we're going to check out. After that, I would like to revamp this old industrial sector that dates from way back when Stratford was just a tiny little hamlet. And then finally, I would like to better connect this cargo transfer station up to the industrial sector, because right now it is connected only by a single 2-lane road that is in horrible condition right now, which does not help things. So we'll get to that a bit later this episode. We're also going to be completing this stretch of highway that leads off into this area, whatever this is going to become. So let's get started. I am going to start off over in this area, where I am first going to remove all of these trees just so they are out of our way to make construction a bit easier. And we're going to start things off over in this triangular shaped lot where I'm going to showcase some of these new industrial assets. And these new industrial buildings can be found under the signature buildings menu, and they actually have their own tab, the Joe's Industrial Ploppables, and here they are. The only problem is because these are classified as signature buildings, they can only be plopped once. So if I plop this building here, I can't go and plop it again. Well, I actually can, because if you use Anarchy, you can do that. But if I select one of these other warehouses and then I try to go back and plop this particular building, I just can't select it. So what I suggest you do is, if you download this asset pack, make sure you download Find It along with it, and then just search for the word Joe, and then all of the individual buildings will be listed. And you can plop these as many times as you want. The game will not prevent that. So most of these warehouses are quite large, so if you're gonna plop any of these, make sure you have a lot of room. But there's a couple of them that are a bit smaller, such as this particular building, which we will be plopping within this oddly sized block. So let's go ahead and plop a couple of these buildings side by side, just like this. I'm going to try to get them as good as I possibly can, and then we'll do some minor corrections with Move It to snap these buildings together. Like this, we can get kind of like a diagonal shaped lot, which is going to look pretty cool. Now, the only unfortunate thing about these particular warehouses is that, well, the road connection is on this face and not on the side, so that complicates things a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just draw a small alleyway, kind of like in a diagonal shape like this, and then I'm just going to draw out a little spur going into each of those sides. So we'll just have kind of a road going into the warehouse like this. And well, everything's connected up, but there's one problem. We have a bunch of stuff in the way. We have lamp posts and fire hydrants. So what I've discovered is, using the road builder mod, you can actually create a tiny little 2-lane road, and by plopping these, this removes all of those annoying props. Oh yeah, and I think I want to also do this road. And then we'll just scooch this to the side a little bit. And there we go. We have our new little warehouse area. And we have some space in between the warehouse and the roads. So I am going to be zoning in some low density offices as well. But first, I just want to make sure that they are not going to be built along our one-way street. And let's just zone in maybe like one big office and then a small one. Oh yeah, these are perfect. And we're going to go a step even further. So I don't want to just plop down these warehouses and call it a day, because a little bit of detailing around them will go a long way to make these look even better. So let's go into our surfaces, and I'm just going to paint a whole bunch of pavement throughout this whole area. And actually, here, let's connect up this building. There we go. And then we're going to do a little bit on the side, because I find a lot of these warehouses often have giant parking lots near them for just general storage and truck parking, those kind of things. There, how's about that? That looks pretty cool. So I'm going to stop there for now, but I will pass over everything that we're going to build today and go into detailing mode, and then, you know, put down some decals, dirty this up a little bit so it doesn't look so barren. And now we're just going to remove some unnecessary traffic lights and crosswalks. And let's move on to the next block, where we have a lot more room. But you'll quickly see that some of these warehouses are so huge that this will probably turn out to be not as much room as we expect. There's a bunch of different styles of warehouses included in this pack, and I'll just go over a couple of them. So we have some more, I'd say, historical looking warehouses, and then we have some more modern looking ones, such as these over here. So you can see that, you know, these look like your typical late 19th century industry buildings that a lot of factories probably had. You know, these would be like in an older part of town, most likely. And then, well, over here we have our modern style distribution center warehouses. So in this episode, we'll be building kind of a mixture of both of these styles of building. So it's going to be pretty interesting. And one asset that is particularly interesting is this building, which is a front office of an industrial warehouse. So this is where, if you have like a giant UPS distribution center, for example, this is the kind of office area where a lot of the staff, the office staff, would work. And if you have a package to go pick up, it's likely in this kind of office that you would step into. So we actually, instead of building these warehouses directly on the main road, which wouldn't make much sense, we're going to have to build some sub-roads that kind of go into the shipping area. And I'm going to continue to use these custom alleyways that I've built just because they have no props or anything in the way. So I'm just going to build a long stretch just like so. Here, let's go ahead and remove these unnecessary traffic lights and all that stuff in the way. And I think I'm going to go for this building. So it kind of has a slanted roof rather than a flat roof. So it looks a little older, a little more of a classic modern warehouse, because this industrial area as a whole is relatively close to downtown. It's still within city limits, so this is kind of like an older industrial sector. So there we go. We have that connected, and I can actually get away with backing up this warehouse a fair amount, probably to right about there, because I don't want trucks. So I'll be adding props to this whole area later on, and I don't want trucks kind of like jetting out into this road, because cars are actually going to be coming in and out of here. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna connect it up to the other side of this road. We'll do the same right here. And then this will lead off into other industrial areas. So now let's plop a whole bunch of pavement. I've built these custom one-way parking lots. They don't have any curbs or anything like that, so we'll just build a bunch of pavement. And let's kind of make this a bit more square. All right, there we go. That looks pretty cool. And again, I'll just make sure to go over all of this and we'll decorate everything nice and neat. So now, well, let's move into the existing industry. And one of the issues that you'll often find if you just zone in a bunch of industry, well, you'll get all of these warehouses that are just mashed together and it doesn't really look that great. So what can we actually plot within this area that would look better? Let's take a look at our existing post-sorting facility where we have a bunch of upgrades that we can apply to it. And one of the upgrades, such as the mail storage extension, is actually a totally separate asset. And unfortunately, it looks like it's a little too wide to fit within this block, but maybe we can get something to work because I have a little bit of road configuration to do. To be honest, although I've built this sort of interchange over here, I gotta be honest, I'm not really a fan of it. Just looking back at it, I don't know, it's just very weird. I tried my damnedest to fit this highway within a very gritty pattern, and I don't know, it's just not doing it for me. So I think I'm gonna take a minute to readjust all of this, and then we should be able to fit this new post mail storage extension a bit better. This interchange, though, is fine just the way it is, but I will add a little something to it. So let's go into time-lapse mode and let's do that. So this is just me being a perfectionist, but I found that the industrial sector was a little too conformed to a grid in certain areas, particularly in front of the mail sorting facility. It was just too blocky and it wasn't New England enough for me, right? Think of Portland, Maine, Boston, just look at the street layout and it's just a mess. So I kind of want Stratford to have that same kind of road layout. And I think so far throughout the entire region, I'm doing a pretty decent job at that. And I don't know, I just felt like this industrial sector was a little out of place. So this is, it's just my perfectionism at work here, but there's a simple fix, and that is to draw a new 4-lane avenue at sort of an angle. So this road is going to follow kind of that curvature near the railroad tracks. It's going to run parallel to the railroad tracks, and it's just going to give this area that kind of, you know, messy road network that it's missing. Also, I'm going to do some slight modifications. I didn't really enjoy the way that I set up my one-way roads. I don't know, it just felt weird. It didn't really work that well. So I deleted one of the one-way roads and just converted the other one into a 4-lane road. And that's gonna give me a little bit more room to build out some more industry in behind. So now what I'm gonna work on is, well, this new avenue that follows the railroad tracks is going to kind of mesh into the interchange that I built last episode. And so traffic can actually merge off of the highway, join this avenue, and then it's also going to act as a sort of expressway into downtown. Mind you, there's a dozen or so traffic lights until you hit downtown, but at least you can just kind of stay on the same road, and this main avenue will eventually lead right into downtown. Additionally, another reason why I'm building this new avenue is because this is what's going to provide the new road connection into the cargo rail terminal. So right now, the rail terminal is kind of segregated from the entire city. It's just in its own corner. I didn't really do a good job at connecting it up to the city. So I feel like this cargo terminal is way underutilized, especially when we compare it to the one in downtown Eastport. And we all know how that one's going. It's just a constant bottleneck all the time. So my hope is if I provide a better road connection to this one, the utilization of this rail terminal will increase and hopefully offset some of the traffic going to the other rail terminal in Eastport. And in addition to building this new avenue, I'm also going to build a couple of off-ramps leading right into the cargo rail terminal, so trucks can just get off of the highway, go right into the rail terminal, offload their cargo, maybe pick up a new shipment or whatever, and then merge back onto the highway and poof, they're on their way. So that's the idea. Will it work? I don't know. We'll just have to see. But here it goes. I've widened that little 2-lane road into a proper 4-lane divided avenue. And this is just going to keep traffic flowing smoothly. And here is where I'm going to link up that 4-lane road into this avenue, which leads to, well, pretty much everywhere in the city. So along with all this new industry we're doing, I'm also doing a fair bit of work on the road network throughout the entire industrial zone, and I'm going to build a few entrances into the industrial park. So as the city expands, there'll be more entrances into the industrial zone for the surrounding neighborhoods. So if people are living in nearby neighborhoods, they can commute very easily into the industrial zone. But look, I know I've kind of been neglecting the public transit in the city. And you guys are just hammering me in the comments all the time saying, we want public transit. Don't worry, guys. I hear you. That is coming very soon. I was really waiting to get into public transit for when the city is more complete. And with the completion of Camden this episode, that means that we're finally good to go. And we can start building some more public transit. So expect some public transit related content very soon. And these are the 2 highway connections I was just talking about. So we're going to build kind of a sort of trumpet interchange. But okay, here's the thing about this industrial zone. I've decided I'm not going to plaster this entire thing with development. I actually want to keep some nature around. And the reason for this is, well, if we kind of study the topography or the geography around the industrial zone, this is a big estuary, essentially, so it's likely extremely environmentally vital for the entire region. So I'm going to leave a lot of this grassland. And what I imagine this area looking like is, I'm thinking of Newark, New Jersey. If we look at the industrial zones between like Jersey City and Newark, there's a ton of marshland. And although there's a ton of highways zipping through it and industrial development, there's still a lot of the natural wetlands that have been conserved. And well, I just want a little bit of this wetland and this nature to be conserved. So there's still actually going to be a lot of green spaces. And there's a small island nearby. I'm going to keep this completely barren. There's just going to be a couple of roads zipping through it, but there won't be any buildings, nothing on this. And just purely grasslands. All right, so the road work is complete. Kind of funny because what I said I was going to do last, I ended up doing first, which is reconnecting the cargo rail station to this road. So as you can see, I've widened it out. So we now have 5 lanes. We have these left turning lanes in some areas so that traffic coming in from either direction can seamlessly turn into either the storage warehouse or the actual main transfer building. And we're seeing it in use right now. A train has pulled into the yard and a bunch of trucks are spawning. And as you can see, I've built up this new interchange so that the truck vehicles can seamlessly join the highway in any direction they want to. So with that being done, we're now going to go back over by the mail sorting facility, and we're good to plop our mail storage extension. And this is a pretty decently large warehouse, but I think I'm going to go ahead and plop it right here. I think that should look good right there. Oh, actually I can plop multiple of these, but I don't think I need to. I think I'm just going to leave it at that. And well, we have a little bit of room in behind it. Oh, just barely. Nope. I think I'll have to do an alleyway in this case. But we have just enough room for an alleyway to go in behind. And then how about we hook it up to this existing road? Oh, but this is not the same type of road. This is one of my custom little 2-lane roads, but I'm actually going to convert this into a proper alley. And let's remove all of this unnecessariness. We don't need stoplights or anything like that. And there we go. We have an extra warehouse. Now, so far, we've taken a look at some upgrades that can be done to certain buildings. We've also placed a number of warehouses. But now let's take a look at our signature buildings. And under the industry tab, we have a ton of new-ish industry buildings that are included in the supply chains content creator pack. And one of the buildings that interests me right now is this energy drink bottling plant, which is relatively small, and we should be able to fit it somewhere in here. There's really great warehouse looking buildings such as the vehicle factory and maybe switch on, but they're just absolutely massive and we just don't have the luxury of space. But the energy drink bottling plant is pretty small, and I think I know just the spot for it. I'm just going to go ahead and plop it right over here across the street. Now, this is an industrial building, so it does cause some level of pollution, very low noise pollution. I didn't even look what else it does. Let's take a look here. Okay, that's it. Just a little bit of noise pollution, and that's it. No water pollution, nothing. So I'm hoping with this building being here, it's not going to affect any of the nearby residents, so we'll just have to keep an eye on that. And there's actually an upgrade that can be applied, which is the shipping and receiving department, which adds +5 industrial efficiency citywide. So that's pretty huge. And that looks really, really cool. It's kind of as if business is good, and poof, we have this whole new extension. So I'm going to go ahead and add this. And again, that's another warehouse looking building. Not super modern. It looks like, you know, this lot would have been purchased years ago, and then maybe this bottling company started off maybe just this section, and business has been booming ever since, and then addition after addition was added. So I really like this asset. And well, I'm going to keep things simple for this particular block. Unfortunately, we have no... Oh, we have a little tiny bit of office demand, which is good. But what I'm going to do here is just paint in a whole bunch of office buildings just to keep things simple, and maybe just a little bit of commercial space just so we can have some proper stores. Make this sort of like a proper shopping area. And there we go. That looks pretty good. Just some generic, you know, regular stores, regular commercial and low density offices. That actually looks great from afar. Now let's move back into, well, let's work within this block, and then maybe if we can fit a smaller warehouse in here, we'll try to do that. And I think we can actually. So I'm going to use Find It to search for Mr. Joe. And actually, let me try. Ooh. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. A warehouse like this, I think will fit wonderfully in here. I'm going to go ahead and add a little back alleyway. I'm going to build 2 separate warehouses. And look at that, we have just enough room. That looks really cool. So now let's add some pavement. And there we go, just like that. And we have a little bit of room for maybe a gas station or something. So if I go and add this, we'll see what spawns. Okay, just a little store, that's totally fine. All right, now let's work within this block here. Unfortunately, I've gone throughout my signature buildings menu and there is nothing that will fit within this space. And I don't think there's any upgrades from any surrounding buildings that will fit in here. I don't think the water treatment plant has anything, no. So what we can do in this case is we can still use our classic industry zoning, but instead of just painting this whole thing with industry, we can just paint in a few industrial lots, and then we can spend some time decorating each one of them. So rather than this lot here being totally consumed by its main building, why don't we build a large parking area in behind like this, and then we can spend a little bit of time decorating this up with trucks and all kinds of props. So now this becomes as if it's a huge property in the back here. So we'll do that with a couple of industrial buildings and then maybe a couple of offices as well. Let's maybe get a large office building in here. And then I'll kind of go ahead and... No, I'm going to build a little alleyway out back. And then I'll add in a industrial building like this. Oh, and that's perfect. Actually, I'm going to move this back just a little bit. And then I will add some concrete. And there we go. Look, that is wonderful. And one thing I really like about building these smaller warehouses between these large ones is we just get more variance. It looks right. Not every single industrial building needs to be a massive distribution center. You know, we need some smaller businesses, some smaller offices. So those look absolutely wonderful. Now, what do we do over here? Well, we have kind of a weirdly shaped lot. So I guess we're just going to keep going with that same theme. Let's maybe get a large industrial warehouse in here. That's perfect. I'm actually going to mark these as historical because I don't want these upgrading into, you know, massive smokestack factories or anything like that. So we'll just keep this as is. And then for this building, I'm going to go ahead and add a large parking area. That will pretty much fit. Well, we might as well use some of the space in behind the highway. And there we go. So this is a huge lot, but we're going to add maybe some factory equipment. Although, I'm just going to go ahead and add one more industry building in the back. So in this case, we'll just go ahead and say that this is one singular company that owns this whole lot. All right, so I'm just going to try a little trick here. I'm not sure how this is going to work, but if I do this, oh, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted, but just going to pause the game real quick. Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I want. That looks so cool. It's almost as if the game knows what kind of assets I'm looking for. I haven't seen any major smokestacks spawning in since we started this project, so that is awesome. I say that, and watch what's going to happen. We're going to get a big old smokestack in here. It's going to be crazy. Okay, let's remove zoning from this road. And I'm going to rezone these buildings. Okay, grain silo is fine. And I find some of these buildings are a little too close to the road, so I'm just gonna back them up a little. Just so they're not like right up against the road. There we go. And then let's have a little bit of commercial space. If we could get a gas station or something to spawn in here, that would be great. But no, that's not what we're looking for. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and plop one. Let's do that. So let's pause the game. We'll remove this little zone. And then we'll go, I don't know if I searched the word gas. Oh yeah, look at that. Let's do, here, we're gonna have to limit the size of this building. So we'll do 3 by 4. Nope. What about 4 by 3? Nope. We got some 3 by 3s though. That's perfect. Here, let's go ahead and do that. So we'll get a small gas station in here. All right, so now it's time to move on to the next phase of this project, which is reworking this dirty old industrial area. However, I'm not opposed to having a bunch of dirty industry, you know, a couple of smokestacks. Like what we have right now is actually pretty good because, well, this is an old industrial sector and I want it to look the part. You know, over here we have a bit more modernism. This is dirty industry. But I'm going to rework one area in particular, and it is this one over here because look how tightly packed all of these industrial buildings are. This is not realistic and it's just outdated. It needs a rework. So I'm going to pause the game real quick as I completely demolish this zone, and we're going to put a whole bunch of people out on the streets. Unfortunately, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs once we're done here. But that's okay. I think it's actually going to turn out to be a net positive because a lot of new buildings exist. Now, I'm going to do another custom warehouse. So we're going to search for our friend Joe. And then we're just going to remove all of our custom searches. And we'll go ahead and do the exact same thing pretty much as the last warehouse. So I'm going to add a front office. And for this one, I'm going to go for the modern looking warehouse building. And we're going to connect that up to my, I think it's a 7-meter road. Let's have a look. I think it's the other one. Okay, yeah, the 7-meter wide road was doing a bunch of weird stuff, so I'm kind of scared to use it. And then we're going to go in here and Joe's Industrial Upgrade 1. I'm going to plop. Go for 4. And that's going to create a huge warehouse. And what I'm going to do is back this road up just far enough so that the warehouse is still connected to the road. And then we can add a bunch of truck trailers and things in between the road and the warehouse. So then we won't have traffic like running through the trailers. And then we're going to go ahead here and, oh, I have a bus stop here. So that's going to complicate things a little bit. Okay, well, I don't really need a proper road on this side anyways. So we're just going to bring this in like that. Gonna remove all of the unnecessariness there. And oh, what do we do with this road? Kind of forgot that was there. Well, we're gonna bring it in like this. And I'm gonna convert this into a proper road. And there we go. That's the solution. All right, so we're just about to hit play here, but I'm going to de-zone this entire lot. I'm going to de-zone this as well, and we're just going to re-zone it a bit better than what it was before. So we'll make sure that we have some proper spacing between all of these buildings in various sizes. And we'll get a good mixture of offices and industry. And let's hit play. And we'll give this a moment to spawn in. Beautiful. Those are totally okay. And let's get into decorating this whole area. Now, one thing that's rather convenient about Joe's industrial pack is we actually have industrial clutter. And I don't know if this is on purpose or what, but if I line this up to this building, look at that. The trailers just fit perfectly in here. So it looks like if I build a road right within this tile, that should actually place these buildings exactly in the right spot. And yes, it does. Look at that. And oh, we're going to be in a little bit of trouble here because it looks like the zoning tiles don't actually line up very well. All right, I'm not sure what's going on, but every time I try to place one of these over in this corner, there's all kinds of connection issues. So I'm just going to use props to try to imitate what's going on here. But at least this gives you an example of what this can look like. And let's zoom out now to view this entire area. And oh my God, it's shaping up to be so great. Now we have a little bit of blank space here. So I'm going to basically do the same thing. However, I'm going to make use of some of those older classic style industry areas. So I'm going to demolish all of these buildings. And then may as well remove these trees while we're at it. Perfect. And then check this out. So we're going to use some of these classic historical looking warehouses. So let's do one like this. Actually, I'm gonna swap these. There, and I'm gonna bring this warehouse out like this. Make sure it's not contacting the highway. And there, just like that. That's pretty good. So we have two separate buildings. And I think that looks wonderful. So we get a little bit of history going on in here. And well, I don't need a big yard, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of pavement like this, and then I'll go ahead and add some industrial buildings within this space. We'll see what we get. All right, that's all right. One little smokestack, that is perfectly fine. Now over here, well, let's see. Let's see what we can do. We have some shorter buildings. So these are actually quite tall. They're like 3-4 stories tall. We have the same version of those buildings, but just in a shorter format. But here, let's de-zone all of this. Let's get rid of all of these vanilla buildings that are crammed together. And we'll get rid of these trees. And then let's see what we can plop in here. So we have some of these warehouses that we've placed before. And then I think I'll do one more building like this. To avoid this becoming too repetitive, I'm going to go into time-lapse mode for the next few minutes, and we're basically just going to populate a ton of these empty spaces with, well, what I've been doing so far. So just plopping a whole bunch of warehouses, maybe a sprinkle of zoned industry, and a lot of detailing coming up in just a moment. So we're pretty much wrapping up the actual construction of this whole industrial area, which involves plopping buildings. And then in just a moment, we'll be heading into the detailing portion where, like I explained a minute ago, we're just going to kind of dirty up this whole industrial park, adding like dirty textures to the ground and making the pavement kind of like in rough shape. Well, not necessarily in rough shape, but making it dirty, right? Industrial zones, they have a lot of truck traffic. They have a lot of cargo coming in and out, and the infrastructure tends to be just a bit dirtier than, say, your wealthy neighborhood. So anyways, here we go. We're pretty much getting into the detailing portion of this episode now. And the first thing that I'm going to do is just paint a whole bunch of textures wherever I think there would be kind of like a pavement yard in behind businesses. And like I explained a bit earlier, this is just where all of these companies, big or small, would park their equipment and maybe store some goods. But I feel like that's the thing that's missing with the default industry in City Skylines 2. zoned industry just kind of ends up looking like this. It's just buildings that are directly adjacent to the road. There's no yards, there's barely any parking. And I know the game's mechanics kind of force it to be that way because we're limited to 6x6 tiles, which is the maximum size that we can zone. But I feel like that just limits things so much. If there's one thing that I really wish there would be more of in City Skylines 2 is these massive industries, whether it's like dirty factories or warehouses like we're working on right now. I just think there should be more bigger buildings. But I know probably with time, there's going to be more mods that will come out. We've already seen this wonderful pack by Joe. And, you know, with time, I'm sure there'll be more of these on Paradox mods. But one thing that's super cool, though, is we do have the supply chains DLC or content creator pack as well. There's a number of really cool buildings included in that pack, as we've explored a bit earlier. And that definitely contributes to the lack of industry in the game by default. So if there's one content creator pack that's totally worth it, that's definitely in my top. Now, if there's one thing that I'm taking away from this episode is that if you're building a large-scale project like an entire industrial zone and you intend to detail it, you're in for a lot of work. Just plopping down vehicles, props, decals, bushes, what have you, just plopping everything that I'm going to plop in this episode that pertains to detailing. All of this took me probably like 3 hours of work. So just a PSA, if you intend on detailing an entire huge industrial zone, just be aware you're in for a lot of work. Now, I'm glad I did it because this looks super cool. I'm really happy with the way this turned out, but oh my God, I'm like exhausted of plopping down vans and trailers and dirt mounds and all of that kind of stuff. But you know what? I think it's all worth it because zooming out of this project, in my opinion, this whole industrial zone just looks so cool, and it's definitely a huge upgrade over what we had before. Now, the only negative with this is this sets a precedent, so any other industry area in the entire city will have this standard. I've set a new standard for myself in this city, and although this is quite a large industrial area, there's going to be a few others like it on the outskirts of both cities, Eastport and Stratford. So this is not the only industry we're going to have, but we'll worry about that when we get there. I'm just excited to get back into the city and get on with the next project. And no dirty old industrial area is complete without Joe's land management services, where I'm going to take this space here between these railroad tracks to build out a dirty old dirt pit. And if anybody in the area requires any infill or topsoil or gravel, Joe here has got you covered. He'll hook you up. So all that to say, this industrial area is not only home to the big corporate mega distribution centers, it's also home to the small guys. There's a bunch of small businesses that would reside within this industrial zone. Small businesses from landscaping companies to tech companies to all kinds of startups. There's a lot of variety and stuff going on in this industrial zone. It's a major production center within the city. It can't just be disregarded as a dirty old industrial sector. Lots of hardworking people of the fine city of Stratford would spend their days and nights working in this place. People like Hector from Hector's Scrap Metal and Auto Salvage Incorporated, which is headquartered under this interchange. So to build this out, I'm going to scour my industrial props to find a whole bunch of junk piles, old scrapped cars. So I'm just going to make a huge pile of them all crammed together. And should you find yourself needing a catalytic converter for your 2004 Buick because it got stolen from a Walmart parking lot, Hector here has got you covered. And well, as I add the last few details to this build, which are mostly consisting of decals at this point and maybe a few trees at the very end, that is pretty much going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. I really had fun with this one. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, drop a like, leave a comment, let me know what you think down in the comments, and make sure you are subscribed if you are not already to get notified of all of my uploads. If you would like early access to all of my videos, check out my Patreon or consider becoming a YouTube member. And there's a few other perks that are included with that as well. So huge shout out to all my channel supporters. You guys are amazing. And make sure you watch to the very end of this video as I'm going to showcase some cinematics of everything we've built today. And let me tell you, it looks amazing. So guys, once again, thank you so much for watching. And until the next one, take care.